I'm looking at a dead man. Not metaphorically. Not clinically. I mean, I'm staring at someone whose death certificate I signed with my own hand 3 years, 4 months, and 17 days ago. I watched his body get loaded into the cremation chamber. I spoke at his memorial service. I told his wife, his widow, that I'd done everything I could. And now, at 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday in October, Adrian Cole is bleeding on my ER table, very much alive, asking me why his chest hurts. My hands won't stop shaking. The night nurse, Rebecca, keeps asking me if I'm okay, but I can't answer because my brain is trying to reconcile two impossible facts. I cremated this man, and he's breathing. Same face. Same scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood fall. Same goddamn tattoo of a compass on his right shoulder that I remember documenting in my post-mortem notes. I'm Dr. Michael, and in my 23 years as an emergency physician at Chicago Memorial Hospital, I've seen things that would make most people quit medicine. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the moment when a ghost sat up on my gurney and said to me, "Doc, I think I'm having a heart attack." This is the story of how everything I knew about life, death, and the space between them got destroyed in one night. And why I'm still not sure if I'm the one who's actually losing his mind. The first thing I did was pull up his old file. My fingers were clumsy on the keyboard, typing his name 3 times before getting it right. Adrian Cole, DOB, April 17, 1981. The system took forever to load, or maybe time just slowed down, but when his record appeared, my stomach dropped. There it was, my signature. Date of death, June 3, 2022. Cause: cardiac arrest following septic shock. I remembered that night like it was yesterday. He'd come in with a raging infection, crashed during treatment, and despite 40 minutes of CPR, we couldn't bring him back. I'd held his wife's hand while she sobbed. I'd written every word of that death certificate myself. But the man on my table wasn't some look-alike. He had Adrian's medical history pulled up on my tablet. Appendectomy scar from 1999, broken tibia from 2015, penicillin allergy. When I asked him his mother's maiden name, he answered correctly. When I asked him where he grew up, he described the exact street in Milwaukee that was listed in his old intake forms. Adrian looked at me and asked, "How long have I been here?" He was wincing as I placed the EKG leads on his chest. I couldn't tell him the truth, that, according to my records, he'd been dead and cremated for 3 years. So instead I told him, "Let's focus on your chest pain." But what I was really thinking was, if this is Adrian Cole, then who the hell did I cremate? I ordered every test I could think of: blood work, full metabolic panel, chest x-ray, and most importantly, DNA analysis. If this was some elaborate fraud, some twin we never knew about, the DNA would tell us. I marked it urgent and personally walked it to the lab. I asked Martin, our night lab tech, "How fast can you run this?" He looked at the requisition form and frowned. Martin said, "This patient's flagged as deceased in the system. Are you sure?" I cut him off. "Just run it, please." While we waited, I examined Adrian more carefully. The scar above his eyebrow wasn't just similar, it was identical. Same jagged pattern from a fall he'd told me about years ago. The compass tattoo on his shoulder had the exact same fade pattern, same slightly crooked north arrow. Even his voice sounded right. That same slight rasp from years of smoking he'd quit in 2019. Rebecca appeared at the door holding a tablet. "Dr. Michael?" she said. "Lab results are back. Martin says you need to see this immediately." I took the tablet. Read the results once, twice, 3 times. The DNA was a perfect match to the sample we had on file from 2022. Not similar, not close, identical, which meant either our entire lab system was compromised or I was standing next to a biological impossibility. Adrian was looking at me with concern. He said, "Doc, You look like you've seen a ghost. If only he knew. The irony was, I was pretty sure he was the ghost. I just couldn't prove it. Yet. I needed answers, and there was only one person who might have them. At 3 a.m., I called the number I still had in Adrian's old file. The phone rang 4 times before a groggy voice answered. I said, "Mrs. Cole? This is Dr. Michael from Chicago Memorial. I'm sorry to call so late, but..." She cut me off. "It's not Mrs. Cole anymore," she said. "I remarried 2 years ago. It's Sarah Bennett now." I could hear the confusion in her voice. "Why are you calling? Is this about Adrian's medical records or something?" I didn't know how to ask this. How do you tell a widow that her dead husband just walked into your ER? So I went with the direct approach. "Sarah, I need you to describe Adrian's tattoos for me. Any distinguishing marks?" There was a long pause. Then she said, "Why would you need that? You were his doctor. You saw him." Her voice broke. "You were there when he died. You know what he looked like." I pressed on. "Please, just describe them." She sighed. "Fine. He had a compass on his right shoulder. North arrow was slightly crooked because the tattoo artist screwed up, and a scar above his left eyebrow from when he fell off his bike as a kid. Every detail matched." "Sarah," I said carefully, "when was the last time you saw Adrian's body?" Another pause. This one longer. "What kind of question is that?" "I saw him at the funeral home. Before the cremation. Why are you asking me this?" I told her I'd call her back and hung up. Because I couldn't tell her the truth yet. That her dead husband was in my ER, with his old wedding ring still on his finger. I went back to Adrian's room. He was sitting up now, looking stronger. The chest pain had subsided with medication. But I wasn't there to check his vitals. I needed to test his memory. I pulled up a chair and said, "Adrian, I need to ask you some questions. Personal ones. Can you tell me what you remember about June 3rd, 2022? He looked confused. "June 2022? That was 3 years ago, right?" He rubbed his temples. "I don't know. Everything's fuzzy. I remember being sick. Really sick. And I remember..." He stopped. His face went pale. "I remember dying." The room got very quiet. I asked him, "What do you mean you remember dying?" Adrian looked at me with tears in his eyes. "I remember the pain stopping," he said. "I remember floating, watching you and the other doctors working on my body. I remember seeing Sarah crying, and then nothing, just darkness, for what felt like forever." He grabbed my arm. "Dr. Michael, where have I been for 3 years? Why can't I remember anything between then and now?" I didn't have an answer. But then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Wait," Adrian whispered. "If I died 3 years ago, if I was cremated like Sarah told me, then what am I? What's sitting here talking to you right now?" Before I could respond, his heart monitor started beeping erratically. His eyes rolled back. And he collapsed on the bed, seizing. I hit the code button and yelled for Rebecca. But as I started treating him, one thought kept screaming in my mind. What if he's right? What if this isn't really Adrian Cole at all? We stabilized Adrian after 20 minutes. The seizure stopped as suddenly as it started. But I couldn't shake what he'd said. So, while he slept, sedated, I did something I'd never done before. I went to hospital security and asked to see footage from June 3rd, 2022. The night Adrian Cole died, Tony, our night security supervisor, pulled up the archives. 3 years back? He asked. That's going to take a minute to load. When the footage appeared, I told him to find the timestamp. 11:47 p.m., the moment I'd called time of death. There I was on screen, standing over Adrian's body, removing my gloves, covering him with a sheet. Two orderlies wheeling the body away toward the morgue. Everything exactly as I remembered. "Can you follow that gurney?" I asked Tony. He switched cameras, tracking the body through the hallways, down to the basement, into the morgue. The timestamp read 12:03 a.m. Then the footage got strange. At 12:15 a.m., the morgue door opened. A figure in scrubs walked in. The camera angle was bad, but I could see them approach Adrian's body. They stood there for exactly 7 minutes, not moving, just standing. And if you think this is strange, wait until you see who that figure actually was. At 12:22 a.m., the figure left. And here's what made me want to vomit. The body bag moved. Just a slight shift. Like someone breathing. Tony leaned forward. "Did that body just—" I told him. "Keep playing." At 12:31 a.m., the funeral home staff arrived to collect the body. Everything proceeded normally after that. But I kept thinking about those 7 minutes. Who was that person? And what the hell did they do to Adrian Cole's corpse? I had Tony rewind the footage to get a better look at the figure in scrubs. He enhanced the image as much as the old system would allow, and when the face finally came into focus, my entire world tilted sideways. It was me. I was looking at myself on that security footage. Same height, same build, same way of walking. The figure even wore my ID badge. But I was never in the morgue that night. After Adrian died, I went straight to my office to complete the death certificate. Then I went home. I remembered every detail of that night because losing a patient always haunted me. I told Tony, "Pull up the footage from my office, same timestamp, 12:15 to 12:22 a.m. He switched cameras. There I was, sitting at my desk, writing notes. At the exact same time I was supposedly standing in the morgue. Tony's face went white. "Dr. Michael," he said slowly, "how are you in two places at once?" I stared at that footage for a long time. And then something happened that I can't explain. A memory surfaced. Not a normal memory. Something buried, like it had been locked away. I suddenly remembered walking to the morgue that night, standing over Adrian's body, whispering to him that I could bring him back, that I'd been working on something. The memory felt real and impossible at the same time, like it belonged to someone else but was mine. I grabbed the desk to steady myself. Tony asked if I was okay. But I wasn't okay. Because if I could be in two places at once, or if I could forget doing something this massive, then what else had I forgotten? What else was I capable of? I asked Adrian the question that had been burning in my mind. "How many?" I said. "How many others did I bring back?" Adrian looked scared. "I don't know," he admitted. "But Dr. Michael, I've been conscious for 3 months now, walking around, trying to figure out what I am, and I've been seeing them. People who look like they shouldn't be here. At the grocery store. Walking down the street, they all have the same look in their eyes, like they're remembering something terrible." He grabbed my hand. "Last week, I saw a woman at a coffee shop," Adrian said. "She had a hospital bracelet still on her wrist, from this hospital. When I got close to her, she looked at me and whispered, 'He brought me back too.' That's when I knew I had to come find you tonight." My office phone started ringing. I answered it. It was Rebecca, and her voice was shaking. She said, "Dr. Michael, you need to come to the ER. Now. We have 4 patients who just walked in. No appointments. No calls. They all say the same thing. They're looking for Dr. Michael. And sir," she paused, "they're all flagged as deceased in our system. All of them died here. All of them had you listed as their attending physician. I told her I'd be right there. But before I left, Adrian grabbed my shoulder. His hand was cold, colder than it should be. He said, "Whatever you did to us, whatever that injection was, I think it's wearing off. I'm starting to forget things. Who I was, why I'm here, and the darkness is coming back." I walked into the ER and saw them, 4 people, all standing in a line, all looking at me with the same hollow expression. I recognized every face. Patients I'd lost over the past 5 years. Patients I'd mourned. Patients whose death certificates bore my signature. And standing behind them, partially hidden in the waiting room, I saw more. At least a dozen others, all watching me, all waiting. I approached the first one, a woman named Helena who died of a stroke 2 years ago. I said, "Helena, what do you remember?" She looked at me with tears streaming down her face. "You promised me a second chance," Helena whispered. "But Dr. Michael, I don't feel alive. I feel like I'm borrowing someone else's body, like I'm wearing a costume made of flesh." The others nodded. They all felt it. Whatever I'd done, whatever experimental protocol I'd developed and couldn't remember creating, it was failing. I made a decision right there. I called hospital administration, turned myself in, showed them everything. They found my research hidden in encrypted files I didn't remember creating. Notes about cellular regeneration, consciousness preservation, playing God with death itself. Here's what terrifies me most. I still don't remember doing any of it. 7 of my resurrected patients are stable. The others are deteriorating. Adrian Cole has maybe 3 months left. And me? I'm suspended. Might lose my license. Might go to prison. But the real question haunts me every night. How many times have I done this and forgotten? How many people walking around right now are my failed experiments, slowly falling apart, wondering why they feel like ghosts? I'm Dr. Michael. I thought I was saving lives. If you've ever felt like you don't belong in your own body, like something's not quite right, drop a comment below. Tell me, do you think Dr. Michael is a hero or a monster? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because next week, I'm sharing the case of the patient who woke up speaking a language that's been dead for 3,000 years. That story will make you question everything about consciousness and memory. Because sometimes the most terrifying medical mysteries aren't about curing disease. They're about what happens when we cross lines we were never meant to cross.